Okay, so let's see if this is working. I genuinely don't know. It looks like it's coming up. Hey, and it looks like we are now live. So, what I want to do is basically build a progressive questionnaire with Alpine JS and Tailwind CSS. So basically, the reasoning behind this is we're looking at reworking the way that our contact pages work on one of the websites, and I'm going to be presenting the concept to the digital design director tomorrow. But rather than sort of just try and display visuals and try and explain it, what I thought I'd do is I'd look at creating a bit of a demo and see exactly how it works, and make sure that what I'm proposing is actually viable. So basically, I have created a very rudimentary project called contact. So if I go to contact.lock, I should get a blank page, which I do. And just to start, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly flesh out a very basic HTML5 framework. We should now see that we're getting that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call in Alpine, and I'm going to call in Tailwind as well. Tailwind CSS, and then add some very rudimentary classes to this, which we're going to say, what are we going to say? We're going to say anti-aliased background gray 100, text gray 900, not 800, and we'll set it to font sans, and then we'll just put hello in there. Yep, so we're getting that, but for some reason, yep, there we go. Now we've got it. So let's have a think about this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a container with it in the center, and I'm just going to add a bit of padding in the middle. I'm not going to create any menus or anything, because this is very much just meant to be a proof of concept. So let's create a form with an action that goes to itself. And what I'm going to do is basically the form has 3 stages. When you load onto the form, it will ask you, in the case of this website, what products you're interested in, a demo, because this part is a book a demo form. What products are you interested in? It will then ask which channels you are interested in. So that could be things like SMS or RCS or WhatsApp, etc. And then finally, the final step will be to basically ask for their contact details. And rather than having this as really one massive long form where you're presenting a lot of information you're asking for from people who actually don't have a huge amount invested in your product, we kind of break it down into smaller chunks where it looks less intimidating, or at least that's the theory. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say that we've got our products, our channels, and our details. If I refresh this, we can see that we've got that now. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to wrap these again in another div. The reason being, it gives us the ability to create a component scope within Alpine. So we're going to set this within the JSON array to have a current step. So let's call it current step, and we'll give it a state of products. So the idea is, what's the current state? Well, you're either on products, you might be on channels, or you might be on details. So that would be, if we then click on, say, like a button that moves the state on, that will then change to channels, and that will hide products and make channels visible. And then when the person clicks on it again, it will go to details, and it will make products and channels hidden. But there may be also a back step that when it's on channels, it goes back to products. So that's a very, very rudimentary level what we are probably going to be using to handle this. And we can start off with something that's very, very simple. Let's just use xShow products, xShow channels, and xShow details. And this kind of hopefully will give you a really good idea about how powerful Alpine is in terms of being able to help you scope this type of stuff out really, really quickly. So let's have a button. In fact, actually, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a div at the bottom. I'm going to say button, and we'll say next. I'm going to do the same here, but this time we're going to have two buttons. And that's why there's a div there, because we're going to set this to flex and justify between with item center. And we're going to have that set to back, and this set to next. And we'll do the same with this, but this time that button will become submit. And we will set that as a role of submit. So we now have our component scope set up. We now have the conditional show set up on that. The question is now, how do we get Alpine to basically toggle between these events? So let's just quickly double check this, and we'll be able to see that we actually have each of these buttons. Not actually quite sure where the next button is for that. Back. It's a bit of a weird one. Anyway, we'll find out where that's disappeared off in a minute. We got back and next. Why if I just remove flex just for the time being? Yeah, we've got them there. We won't do that just for the minute because wondering where that's going. But basically the idea will be that you click next, you'll click this, and we'll click that. So we've got xShow. Let's just check the Alpine docs, because we need to basically set xShow to only show if there we go, that's how we do. So if in this example the tab equals food, display that, otherwise show that. So we want to say if current step is equal to products or channels or details. And if we go back and we refresh this, it's still not working. The question is why? Is it because we need, no, it's because that's not set as a string, that's set as a value like that. We just need to do the same again on these. Yeah, that's right. Let's double check that. And if we come back and refresh, fingers crossed. Yay, there we go. So we can now see that that's only displaying products. So the next step is that we need to create some triggers on these buttons, and I've got no idea why VS Code keeps on doing that with the buttons because it's getting really irritating. But anyway, we want to have a click handler where we basically set the value to be the next component. So what we're going to do is we're going to say on click, we want current step to equal channels, and in the same vein, we're going to push these down to and just format this a little bit just to make it a bit nicer to read once we start working on this. That and that, and we'll do click equals current step equals, just double check one thing very quickly. Just want to double check that when you need to set that to be a string, so we want that to be a string there, otherwise it's not going to work. A string there. So when you click back, we want to set that to products, and when we set that forward, we want that to be details. And in exactly the same vein, I'm just going to copy this button rather than try and format it again. When it's back, we want to send it back to channels, and when it's that, we're going to submit. So what we might need to do with it being a button is potentially use a handler to basically prevent it from submitting, but we'll see what happens in a second. Now we can see here that it all seems to be working fine. Not entirely sure why that then didn't display the other thing, but click, because there's no text, that'll be why. Back. So products next, channels, back to products, or we can go on to details and we can go back to channels and forward on to submit. And if we click submit, nothing should happen, which is kind of what we're expecting. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this to, let's create a, what could we do this with? I'm not going to be doing any of the actual form handling here. I just want it literally be a bog standard HTML demo. But what we can do here, I suppose we could use something like form spree maybe to kind of get it to work. In fact, yeah, let's use form spree. So if you never use something like form spree, they're just basically form handlers with basically a little bit of code to handle some of the other stuff that you don't really want to build. So it basically gives you the ability to do some bits and pieces of form stuff without actually having to handle stuff. So let's just see if that was my login, because if it was, brilliant. Yes. Right, I'm not entirely sure why that field is all the way over there, but that's really irritating. So I'm just going to quickly adjust that. It's probably why we couldn't see the fields before. So we now have a form. Let's create a new form. Right, we'll just quickly, that should be linked. Why is that not linked? In fact, I'll just quickly do that on my phone. Basically, you just got to always authorize an email address. So I'm just going to quickly verify the email here, and we should, in a second, have it all there. Yes, I'm not a robot. Help Google train its streetcars. There we go, email verified. Okay, cool. So let's have a look. If we just refresh this. We now have that. Give that form. These are some really old forms. We'll just create this as what could we call it? Book a demo test, and we'll send them to this. Okay, let's copy that. Just double check all that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Should be type submit, not role submit. And we'll just set the form action to be this, and we'll set the method to be post. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Make that capitals just for the sake of making it more clean. And then we'll go here, we'll come back to the demo. Okay. And if we go channels, next, almost there. Yeah. Thank you very much. So yeah, we've basically got a situation here where the buttons are actually submitting the form, which is not what we want. So we need to find the prevent. So on click prevent. So we want to say click prevent. And in theory, that should be all that's necessary to stop it from accidentally submitting these. Yeah, there we go. Let's refresh this page. Next. Yeah, so we've now got a situation where we can move back and forth, and when we click submit, there we go. It will send it through to that, and in theory, we will have a new form, and yep. So I'll show the camera quickly. We can see that we have got a new form. Obviously, there's nothing there coming through because there's no data being sent through, but as a proof of concept, we're pretty much there. So what I'm going to do now is basically have a look at fleshing out some of this stuff with a couple of options. So this first one is probably going to be radios, because radios are checkbox. No, because you can. So technically they're booking a demo. So I mean, this is the type of thing that we need to kind of flesh out tomorrow anyway. But in theory, you've got two options. You can either book a demo for one product, or you can book multiple demos. I'm going to go and err on the side caution and say that they can book multiple demos, or at least request a demo of multiple products. So if that's the case, we're going to want to basically say an unordered list with a list item, and we'll wrap a label. So I when I'm building forms, I typically wrap the inputs inside the labels. This gives you a little bit more control, especially if you have any validation messages that you want to return. It actually means that people can click on the validation message, provided that you return the validation message within the label component. And then I just tend to wrap the text in a span. So we have a label. We're going to have an input box. So we're going to have an input. It's checkbox. And the name. Do you know what? I might have been a developer for a very long time, but I can never remember whether the name is the link or whether the ID. I think the name is the link. The name is the link. The ID is yeah, cool. All right. So the name is the link. So we're going to say product, and we'll come back to that in a second, and we'll say the value is the same as the product. I believe that's what the Mozilla documents were suggesting. Just double check. Coding music, yeah, that's correct. Okay, cool. So the first one, we're just going to go. We won't bother using the proper names. We'll just go product A, and then we'll go product B, product C, etc., etc. So let's have that many. B, C, D, E, C, D, E, F. Okay, we just go back to here. We can see that we've got that, but we haven't got anything else. So obviously, what I kind of want to do with these is basically have this as a hidden. So we don't want to display the checkbox. What I'm going to do here, just to make this a little bit more formatable or a little bit easier to read, is just move these down to new lines each. And then tab them in ever so slightly. There we go. So that's now all in line, a little bit more readable. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start formulating how we're going to effectively have the text in the image that would be present in the button. So we're going to have a span, and we'll give that a class of block just to give it a bit of oomph, and then we'll have, in fact, that doesn't want to be block, that wants to be flex. We'll have an image, and then we'll have a span again, and this span will be where the name of the product is. So in this case, product A, let's say product B, product C, and product D, product E, and product F. And we'll just go here. We've now got these. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly go to the website. I'm just going to grab any of these SVGs. Let's just use that one. And we'll chuck that in there. Okay. And we now have this. What I'm going to do here, though, is I am going to give them a max height. Should go through CSS. Height of text is going to probably be 16, maybe so, but let's say 5. So we've got a height of 20. Obviously, it's not a great image for the purposes of what we're doing, but it will serve its purpose. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come down here. I'm just going to add some classes to this. I'm going to make it text small, font bold, uppercase. It's tracking wide, I think. We'll give it a bit of, yeah, that's fine. And then we're going to say text blue 600 maybe. Say 5 maybe. The colors are going to be slightly off just because this website's using the old style or Tailwind pre version 1 for its styles, whereas the CDNF coding is actually the latest one. But for the purposes of what we're doing, it'll be fine. So let's just quickly grab all of those items, and then we'll say border 2, border blue 400 as well. padding 4 and padding of 3 on vertical, letting none because we don't want any additional space being implied. Rounded. And let's just see what that gives us. That gives us that, which is not really what we want. So I think this needs to be inline flex, which is more what we're after. And then, yeah, awesome. That needs to have item center because, yeah, that's fine. And then what we'll do is here we'll go margin right 2, maybe too much. That seems about right. So, I mean, that kind of gives us what we're after. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to say class flex, and then let's see, flex wrap. Let's say that's fine. Do you know what actually I'll do? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to find all the LIs. Right, and then come back in. I'm just going to add some margin right of, let's say, 4, just to push them off each other. And then I'm going to add a little bit of styling to this for the hover state. So we're going to say hover background blue 400, text white. And then what have we got? What have we got wise in terms of the version of Tailwind? Because does this have the new question is, does it have the new transitions in it? Possibly not. No, it doesn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to manually add into the header just a really quick button transition. We're going to say background color and text color. 150 ms and ease in out, and that comma actually needs to be here. I think in theory, no, maybe it needs to be there. Oh, do you know, for the sake of it? Oh no, of course not. Just put it as all. Oh. Yeah, that's me being an idiot. It's not a button, is it? It is a how are we going to define this as behaving? Let's say span with a class of transition. Transition. Possibly misspelled that, but we'll just give that. Okay, and we'll just say hover on that. And I'll just change that to all for the sake of making this a little bit easier. Yeah, there we go. You can see that now sizing it. It's a bit ugly, but for the sake of what we're looking to try and do, it will do the job. So let's just replace where it says text white. Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah. I'm not entirely sure why it's not replacing the color. Oh, I see why. So we want to say that, get rid of this, and we want to say text inherit. Get that there, get that there, get that there, and get that there. And obviously this is where working with components would come into its own. So text blue 400. Okay, let's go there, we'll go there, go there. That's got it, and that's got it. Okay, cool. Okay. Obviously, the logo is not going to, or the icon's not going to change color. We'd probably pull that in as an SVG, so that we have the ability to do that. But obviously, just for the sake of this, we're not going to go to that extent. So we've now got that. Really, really minor thing, but just because it will irritate me otherwise. Cursor pointer. Where's it? Cursor point. Let's just double check and see what the documentation says. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why that's not doing that, but what I might do actually thinking about is it probably should be on this top level one anyway, rather than there. So let's just quickly find every instance of it, and then we'll just go here, 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 there, and there. And we'll say cursor pointer. Okay, right. In theory, yeah, now we got what we're after. Awesome, cool. So, what I'm going to do next is basically just do some more work on this stuff. Basically, flesh out the rest of the fields and have a look at making sure that we actually are collecting the information that we want to do. So, bearing that in mind, in theory, we should be able to already check this. So we want to, let's say we're interested in product C. Obviously, you need to have some sort of selected state for that, which we can do with Alpine. So what we'll do here is we'll say that what is the, there's a way of doing this, and it is checkbox. There we go. There's another example somewhere. X model. So X model has two-way binding to an element. In other words, it will kept in sync. Okay, so actually there's another way of doing this, which would be using bind. So when we click on this, we want to bind the value, whether it's checked. So checkbox, again, let's just quickly double check this, because again, it's one of these things I can never remember. It's checked. All right, checked. There we go, checked. Okay. So if we remove the hidden from this temporarily, just so we can actually see the checkboxes, we can see that, for example, this one's actually checked. So we want to, let's just do it on 1 for the time being. We're going to say checked is equal. Actually, let's just double check one thing about this. Bind. Where's bind? Bind, and it's for Boolean attributes. Suppose Boolean attributes, okay, equals whatever the var is. Okay, so we need to have a think about how we're going to do this. Do we want to be defining every single do we want to be defining within the data attribute each product? Do we need to? It's a good question. It's not one that I'd thought about. So xbind type, input type. Let's see if we just go without naming it that. I'm going to say product A. It might complain that product A doesn't exist, but we'll use that and we'll have a look at the class. It's still on bind, isn't it? Class. So it's the class that we want to apply. Let's just be background blue 400 and text white. If product A is true, now let's see what happens. We break Alpine because, yeah, product is not defined. Interestingly, we're going to have to set it as that as well because we can't be having it as a hyphen. Let's have a quick look at the error that we're now getting. We should be getting product A is not defined, which is kind of what we expect. So I have to say product A is false. Product B is false. Product C is false. Product D is false. Product E is false. Now, obviously, this isn't particularly clean. It's a little bit hard to maintain. So if we're going to do this, we'll probably, in the live version, move this into a function so you can make it a little bit easier to control. But if we just do that, we can now see that it is working as we expect. However, what we expect to see is not happening if product A have a quick look at this. So we've got checked product A is equal to false. So why is that not working like I would expect it to? Okay, so open equals false. Right. Okay, so we defined each of these as false, and we want to say when it's checked, checked is the value of A right. Maybe that's not how we're meant to be doing it. Bind type. I wonder whether or not most Boolean attributes are supported. I wonder whether or not it currently has support for the checked attribute. Right, that might be one that I leave for a little while, but basically the general gist of what we're trying to do has been achieved in terms of showing how we would do basically the progressive form. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to head off now and just carry on having a look at trying to get this working, and then obviously what I'll do is I will try and record a second video, edit these two together, and we'll go from there. So until then, have a good night, and I will see you all soon.